Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Thoughtworks Presents Well-Architected Framework Review Bytes. Welcome to episode 1. I'd like to start off by saying that was a fantastic little countdown. I don't think I've ever had the honor of coming straight on after such a high energy countdown. Thank you, Alan. So I'd like to kick us off with an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, wherever that may be for you. And I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So today, you've got the pleasure of being joined by both myself, my name's Jacob, I'm a sales leader at Thoughtworks, and Alan Blockley. Alan Blockley is a pre-sales solution architect lead with Thoughtworks, and he's also an AWS Ambassador, which you can probably see on the little banner that he has underneath his name, which I forgot to do. So for a quick run through of what we'll be covering off today, we'll start off with a quick welcome from Thoughtworks, give you a little bit of an idea as to who we are and what we do. And then we'll pass over to Alan to start defining what the AWS Well-Architected Framework is. And then we're going to kick into the sort of meat of today's session, which is a deep dive into the pillar operational excellence. We'll then wrap up with Alan sharing some learnings as to how to implement the well-architected framework in your existing architectures. And then we'll leave some time at the end for an interactive Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please go drop them in the comments section and we'll bring them up on screen and do our best to answer as many of those as we can. So to start off, Thoughtworks, if you haven't heard of us before, if this is your first time, we're a global software consultancy or technology consultancy. We support clients from all walks of life, all the way through from the smallest startups that maybe just have an idea or are pre-MVP, all the way up to some of the largest brands in the country. And you can see a few of those on the screen there. So Atlassian, Qantas, Domino's, the list could go on and on and on. That's a little bit about us. And what we do is, if you could just go to the next slide, Alan, awesome. So we are an end-to-end digital partner. We combine strategy, software engineering, design, organizational transformation into one shot. And if you were to break it down into sort of 4 key pillars of our business, you can see them presented there on the screen. Starting off, we've got customer experience, product, and design. If you were to summarize that, it'd be things like bringing your ideas for your business to market, maybe new applications, designing your customer experience strategy, and product design in general. We then have another pillar, which is enterprise modernization, platform, and cloud. Within this pillar, you can think modernization strategy and actually execution of that modernization strategy. It could be migrating you into the cloud in the first place if you're on premise, or even from different public cloud providers, so from Azure to AWS, for example. And we're even able to help you with operations in the cloud through digital application management and operations, which we shorten to DAMO. The next pillar is data and AI. So within data and AI, we help customers build robust data strategies and actually execute on those, help them build their data platforms. And one of the things which is a hot topic as of late and will likely continue to be a hot topic is everything cutting edge AI and Gen AI. And then lastly, we have a pillar for digital transformation and operations. So within DTO, that we shorten it to, we help our clients build and execute on their digital strategies. On to the next slide. So over the past few decades, Thoughtworks has been at the forefront of many, many technology innovations, with multiple pieces of literature being authored by a whole bunch of our colleagues all over the world. We really aim to define the way that modern digital products are built by some of the world's most advanced organizations. And where we are, we've been in operation for over 30 years now, which we're incredibly proud to say. We have over 10,000 employees right now across 51 offices in 18 countries. So we're truly a global organization. What this means for us, and in turn means for the customers that we work with, is that we can build the perfect team to support our clients on whichever engagement that they're looking for support with, often using distributed teams across different regions of the world. And the last little piece is that as a leading digital transformation partner, we also recognize the huge value and importance of collaborating with other trusted technology providers to bring our customers the best solutions possible. AWS is one of the partners that we're incredibly close with. And you can see that in some of these bullet points here, we've been helping customers migrate to the cloud since 2006, so really, really early days. Thoughtworks is actually also a premier tier services partner, which is the highest tier of partner you can achieve, which is a huge accolade. And we've got multiple AWS competencies across the entirety of the business. So with all of that said and done, it's probably a really good point for me to pass over to my colleague, Alan. One thing that I'll drop in here is Alan was recently recognized for being the top AWS Ambassador in Australia and New Zealand. And he also has every single AWS certification under the sun. I'm surprised that Alan is not sporting his gold jacket to wear that badge of honor today. So we'll pass over to Alan, and he's going to delve a little bit deeper on the next parts of our presentation.
Yeah, it's currently raining here in Melbourne, and the golden jacket doesn't work very well in the rain. So
fair enough.
Thanks, Jacob. So in the next sort of half an hour, we're going to be talking about the AWS Well-Architected Framework. But just to give you an idea of what the AWS Well-Architected Framework is and where it came from, we're just going to go through a brief history of the framework as well. So it started a long time ago in a galaxy far away, around about 2012, when there was a series of large-scale outages across certain areas of AWS. AWS did a retrospective, and they looked at what their customers needed to do to avoid these large-scale outages. They found some customers weren't impacted by the large-scale outages, so ultimately, from the customers that weren't impacted, they formed the original well-architected framework of 4 pillars. Since then, it's developed into 6 pillars, and as you can see on the screen here, starting off with operational excellence. Ultimately, when we talk about operational excellence, which we're going to talk about today, we talk about things like how to automate change, how to respond to events, and how to define standards to manage your daily operations. Moving on to security, the second pillar, which we'll be talking about next week. This is where we look at the confidentiality and the integrity of your data. We'll look at how you manage user permissions, and we also look at things like establishing controls to detect security events and how you respond to those events as well. The third pillar of the well-architected framework is reliability. A lot of people find this very important as this defines things like distributed system design, what your disaster recovery plan might be, and how to look after your data from a backup perspective as well. Performance efficiency is the fourth pillar of the well-architected framework, and this is where we start looking at specific instances of a customer's environment, ultimately looking at if they are performant, if they're fit for purpose, and how you maintain that performance over time. Because as workloads grow, they're going to need to stay performant, and you're going to need to get the best out of them. Cost optimization is the fifth pillar, and we'll be talking about this in about 4 weeks' time. And this is where you pick on all those instances you talked about in performance. Ultimately, we are looking to make sure that these instances might scale, they scale appropriately without overspending, and also making sure that you're getting the best return on investment from your cloud infrastructure as well. And then lastly is sustainability. The newest kid on the block, as I like to call it, but ultimately this is thinking about going green. This is where you are ensuring that the carbon emissions that come out of the data center or the region that is directly related to your workload are minimized whilst also maximizing the utilization. That's the well-architected framework and the 6 pillars. But today, as I said, we're going to be talking about operational excellence. The thing is, why? Famous quote from Werner Vogels: everything fails all of the time. It does. It's a true story. And this is why observability exists. We need to not only know, how do we know if something has fallen over? We also need to understand, how do we know if it's going to fail? Not only do you need to be reactive with how you monitor and look at your workload, but we also need to look at more proactively understanding when it's about to fail. You need to understand that as well, underneath the hood of your workload, of your architecture, of your stack, there's got to be more to it than it's just broken. Having a status to say up or down is one thing, but then understanding the detail as to why it's broken and what it is that needs to be fixed. And then understanding what the value of observability is to your business, to your workload, to your architecture. Because what we've got to remember is each outage isn't just an inconvenience. It's actually something that could impact your business's reputation as well. It could be costly to revenue. You're going to potentially lose customers if you're not closely monitoring your workload and understanding when it goes down and minimizing the impact when it does go down. And this is what observability is about. Monitoring. One of the key things that I say to customers when we talk about monitoring, as much as you can see in our wonderful little AI-generated picture here, lots of monitors, lots of graphs and everything else, sometimes you can put too much into monitoring. So start by doing things like defining business KPIs that would then drive the monitors that you have to pay attention to. Monitors can create a lot of noise sometimes. You want to understand what's happening with a service. But if you're monitoring everything, how do you know what's valuable and what's not? Some implementations of monitoring that can be put in place in AWS start with CloudWatch metrics. Every AWS service generally reports back to CloudWatch and has a metric, a number, and a graph attributed to it. And then you can monitor those metrics to understand the health of your workload better. There's also third-party partner products as well that are available, such as Datadog, New Relic, Grafana. These are all products which do something similar to CloudWatch. But the important thing here to remember is not only do you need to monitor, keep remembering to have a business KPI attached to that monitor or threshold. Think, is this going to cost me money if it goes down or goes into negative? Is this going to cost me my reputation? So when you start designing monitors, no matter what product you use, make sure you attach the value of the business to that monitor as well. Similarly, when you are looking at things like databases as well, more specifically, there are special features built into AWS and into RDS, Relational Database Service, such as performance insights. Not only do you need to understand what your architecture is doing, but you probably want to understand what how your data is performing as well. And Performance Insights is a service that allows you to drill down to how performant these queries are and how performant your database is. Your data strategy is just as important as your compute strategy. And then with the application itself, going even deeper into monitoring of your application, there is application performance monitoring that you can implement. Tracing within the application itself, such as X-Ray. There's a service from Amazon which allows you to really look into what's going on inside your application. Again, third-party partner products also allow for the utilization of tracing and APM as well. But when we mentioned earlier, it's not just about if it's up or down. It's also understanding the detail. And this is where logging comes in. It's important to make sure that in your application, in your architecture, in your workload, you are not only monitoring for up or down, broken or not broken, but to be able to debug that and understand why it broke, you're going to have to start putting in some sort of logging. Some mechanisms of logging will be destroyed on the event that a service has failed. For example, if you're running an EC2 instance or a container and it fails, the log files are built into the instance and you're not going to be able to look at the log files. With this in mind, the first best practice from the Well-Architected Framework is to centralize all of your log files, whether that be into CloudWatch logs or an external logging platform or a dedicated log server built into your architecture. But having them centralized into one place means that you then don't have to worry about looking at the broken architecture to find out what went wrong. You can do it using an independent logging service instead. Similarly, you want to make sure, just like those thresholds I talked about in monitoring, you want to make sure you're getting value out of those logs as well. This is where structured logging comes in handy. Being able to send log information of different value to your centralized logging platform is important. Understanding that this is just a piece of information versus this is actually a critical error. So structuring and tiering the logging to a centralized source is also a critical best practice here when it comes to understanding what's going on in your workload. There's other services within the AWS framework that allow you to take logs from EC2 instances and send them to CloudWatch logs or to S3, for example, as well. But ensuring that you are taking advantage of things like CloudWatch agents to then enable that logging agent to send off the logs as well. AWS FireLens is also a way of getting logs out of Fargate tasks and sending your logs off to CloudWatch there as well. Many different options are available to allow you to centralize your logs, but ultimately making sure that you get them off that instance is most important. So then what do you need to be doing once something has broken? How do you know? Because you don't want to have an employee sat there watching all those graphs 24 hours a day. I don't think it's legal to hire anyone for 24 hours a day for starters. But on the flip side of that, I think it's going to be a very tedious task to have somebody just watching metrics all day. So putting in a robust alerting system is also a very key and important best practice at this point. Have your alerts structured just like your logs, have them have value just like your thresholds and your monitoring, have those alerts tiered. So we talked about business value a few minutes ago, the business value of the thresholds. If something is going to be in fact impactful from the perspective of revenue or customer reputation, maybe that's a 24/7 alarm. That alarm's going to have to wake somebody up, be visible to the right person at the right time to ensure that that can be fixed as quickly as possible. But then similarly, you might find that there is a problem in the stack which is only impacting performance by 10-15%, or it may show that it's going to fail, but it's not going to fail for another 2 days. That's where you can probably leave that alert to a business day alert instead and come back to it 9 a.m. the next day rather than waking up an engineer. Because coming back to the having too much available in monitoring and thresholds, alerting is very similar. If you start to get too many alerts, your engineers are going to get alert fatigue, and you're going to find you get some very grumpy engineers, and that some people will start to get blasé about alerts going off and start to ignore alerts as well. This is then a high-risk item. Services that allow you to have robust alerting systems are services like PagerDuty and Opsgenie. But what do we mean by a robust alerting system? Ultimately, the robust alerting system is something that will cut through any of those do not disturbs. It will get the job done. It will get to the right person at the right time, and it will be structured and tiered as well. And don't be scared to get involved with things like chat ops as well. Sending alerts off to Slack or Teams during the day where your team is working is also just as effective and useful. So how do you implement well-architected best practices into your business? It's probably a very good question, because as much as we talk about best practices all the time, sometimes it's really difficult to try and know where to start. Design with well-architected in mind. As you start to be more educated about the well-architected framework, start to think about what is this best practice? How is it going to impact me long-term? A lot of people still don't quite understand where well-architected fits into their application stack. And I often say to customers, think about when you're building a house. You have to put a foundation down first, a slab. Without a good foundation, you can't build your house. The well-architected framework will help you build that foundation to then build your application upon. But no matter whether it's a new architecture or whether it is a change, still think about well-architected first. Build a strategy of remediation. Prioritize your remediation items. Don't try and fix everything at once. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you're not going to remediate every high-risk item in a single click. So prioritize, make a strategy, because change can be impactful as well. And sometimes some change with the impact that might happen to your business, it could disrupt your business, and you want to plan and prioritize and create a strategy to make sure you don't impact your business negatively. Build the strategy based upon high, medium, or other types of priorities, but also build it on business requirement priorities as well. But keep it simple. A well-architected environment doesn't have to be overly complex. We don't need to boil the ocean at this point. A lot of the best practices sound complex, but they're fairly simple to be done when they're done right, and they don't have to be too complex. I always recommend that you review your architecture every 12 months, and this is to ensure that, just like your car, you're maintaining a well-serviced engine. People happen, things happen, people leave, people join your business. And so it's always worth reviewing your architecture and remediating, because things may have changed in terms of best practices when people come and go. Standards change as well. Last year's best practice might be this year's problem. So always check what the newest best practices are. And as I said earlier, treat a well-architected framework review like a service for your car. And if you're unsure, engage with a well-architected partner, such as Thoughtworks. And at that point, I'm going to let Jacob talk about how Thoughtworks get involved in terms of well-architected framework reviews and remediation.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alan. I think I really resonate with the fact of, or what you said, of building a strategy for remediation, Rome not being built in a day, and not having the expectation that you're going to tackle absolutely everything all in one fell swoop. I think the well-architected framework is built in a way where segregating everything into pillars, so operational excellence, security, reliability, sustainability, cost optimization, can really look at what your business's goals are for the next 6, 12, 18 months. And align to those pillars to give you a head start or a sort of guiding light on which areas to focus in on the well-architected framework to build that strategy as well. But we'll talk a little bit about how Thoughtworks can partner with you and your business to support you in implementing the well-architected framework. So Thoughtworks offer well-architected framework reviews as a partner-led exercise. So not an exercise where we're just sort of ticking boxes, tick and flicking, and providing you with a sort of fairly generic report as the output. We host these reviews as a 3-hour conversational review. One of the great things, or one of the things that we're actually asked really commonly by customers when they're looking to partner with us on a review is, hey, what does my team have to do for us to go through this process? Is this going to take a huge amount of effort from our engineers? And the answer to that very simply is no. There's absolutely no prep work that you need to do to undertake a well-architected framework review with Thoughtworks. Conversation is guided by Alan and his team, and by doing it as a partner-led well-architected framework review, allows us the ability to pivot as new information is gathered. We don't have to just follow A, B, C, D, E, F, G. As we get to a topic of conversation that you want to delve slightly deeper on or stray a little bit away from the well-architected framework and talk about other topics, having it as a conversational review really allows us to do that to give you sort of maximum value out of the time spent. The only thing that we do ask for when we're booking in well-architected framework reviews is that you provide us a copy of your most recent AWS bill. That might seem invasive at first glance, but we assure you it's not. The reason why we ask for it is it lets us get a head start on cost optimization. So we can see within your environment, what are the heavily utilized services? Could there potentially be things which are over-provisioned or not being provisioned correctly? So it allows us to go into the well-architected review process well-informed about at least the building blocks of your environment and come in with an idea on cost optimization. It also gives us a bit of a guide as to what your architecture might look like in your environment so that we can tailor the review more for you and your business. So we host that review. Something that I forgot to mention, we encourage you to bring as many folks as possible along to that. A lot of the time, it can be a really great opportunity for potentially new engineers in your business to get a really deep dive insight into what your environment looks like. And it can be a great way to sort of share information between different engineering teams that you might have in the business. So open to just having one person from the business join it, or we've done reviews where there have been 15, 20 people all in that review. So once we complete that review, Alan and his team then have their hands full building a really detailed remediation report for you. And we provide that report within 5 business days. So really quick turnaround time on those reports. And the reports are split into 3 key different sections. So the first section that you'll see at the top of the report is an executive summary. The executive summary is a really fantastic tool for both technical stakeholders within the business and the non-technical folks that might be in the business but have an interest in what's going on in your infrastructure as well. The executive summary is our summation of the areas of opportunity within your environment that will be highest ROI for you to act on remediation. So as an example, it could be a glaring security hole within the business that we recommend needs to be fixed ASAP. Or it could be an area of opportunity around cost optimization where we foresee a really significant ROI in sort of investment being put into that area. So we summarize the areas of greatest opportunity, and the executive summaries are written in really layman's terms. I mean, Alan's an AWS Ambassador and a lead solutions architect. I'm a salesperson. I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't understand some of the technical things all the time. And there hasn't been an executive summary to date that I've read and I haven't understood. So if I can understand it, anyone in the business could. So executive summary number 1. Then the next spot that we go on to is a risk profile matrix. And that's actually what you'll see on the screen now. So we split out those 6 pillars of the well-architected framework. And we give you a visual representation of where all the remediation recommendations lie. So you can see all of the high risk items versus medium risk items categorized into the pillars. This again is a really, really great visual way to see, hey, where's my area of greatest opportunity within the environment? And then the third section is the meat of the report. That is all of the in-depth remediation recommendations. Sometimes that section can be 5 pages long. Other times it can be 25 pages long. So Alan and his team go and create that, and then we send that off to you and sort of move on from there. Cool. If you'd like to go to the next slide, Alan, I might just talk a little bit about why Thoughtworks. Why would you partner with us to do a well-architected framework review? We've been doing this really since the inception of the program. We were one of the first partners to join the well-architected competency. And just over the last 2 years alone, we've delivered over 300 of these well-architected framework reviews. Within those 300 reviews, we've then been engaged as a consulting partner to support clients with remediation. And through those efforts, we've remediated over 8,000 high-risk items within customers' environments. So have made a really, truly significant impact to the amount of HRIs in their business. And customers love doing them. On average, our customer satisfaction score is 4.9 out of 5. So yeah, there's really all the more reason to be partnering with us for them. So what we might do is just pop this on the screen for a short while, which is a QR code, which if you'd like to scan, this links to a contact form where you can request one of our Thoughtworks business development managers to reach out to have a conversation with you about booking a well-architected review with us. We've also got a link up there on the slides. Awesome. Well, that concludes today's presentation. We've got some time to go into Q&A. If anyone has a question that they'd like answered, feel free to pop it in the chat and we'll bring it up on screen and get that answered for you.
Thanks, Jacob. Really appreciate your time today in hosting. It's been a really interesting half an hour so far. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask about the well-architected framework, anything I've spoken about today, I'm more than happy to answer them whilst we are on the webinar. But also, don't forget, if you are interested in looking at your architecture, talking to one of our team as well about your architecture, looking at well-architected, then scan the QR code or also go and take down this link. I'm going to take the silence is golden and move on from the QA and just say thank you guys for joining today, and thank you, Jacob. And no worries, thank you for hosting. And don't forget to tune in next week for the security pillar. Thanks, team. Bye.